and welcome to our CBS19 Winter Weather Special, Cold Truth. I'm CBS19 Chief Meteorologist Brett Anthony, along with weather experts Joel Robinson and Jamie Hassard.
Tonight's special is all about preparing you for the upcoming winter season. We'll give you some great tips on how to prepare your home, alongside going over the different types of winter precipitation that occur here at East Texas.
The steak or chicken that you have on your dinner table most likely came from a farm. Tonight, we'll take you to an East Texas cattle farm where you'll see how farmers are keeping their cattle safe and their farms going when temperatures drop below freezing. Plus, we'll clear up some winter myths for you.
5 years ago, a historic winter storm hit Texas. Millions of folks lost power, and unfortunately, hundreds of lives were lost. The state faced a reckoning. But out of that darkness came stories of resilience and even love. Tonight, we look back at that historic storm that hit Texas, and we meet a couple who found love in the cold.
If you sit down and think about it, it does feel like a full 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been busy.
Casey and Ryan Miller have been busy. They met 5 years ago, just days before the winter storm hit.
On a frozen Valentine's Day, here's an update to the forecast. So far,
a storm we accurately forecasted on air through our website and through social media.
Snow is expected to develop and move into the area tonight. It will become heavy at times overnight. Please be careful if you have to travel this evening. I would advise against it.
Snow and cold turned a date night into a week-long date. The Millers told that story to our Jesus Martinez last year.
We looked outside, I was walking out the door, and we were like, well, you can't go.
Little did they know that the 2021 winter storm was going to freeze their love in time for years to come.
Since the storm, a lot has changed for Ryan and Casey. They got married in 2023, and in September of 2025, became a family when baby Elowen was born.
Sometimes the memories of what all we've done and gone through, it's like, yeah, it really has been that long, but at the same time, it doesn't feel that long ago.
February 2021, a brutal Arctic blast gripped Texas. Temperatures plunged.
Then we have bitter cold wind chills by Tuesday morning, maybe 15 below zero.
Power grids failed. More than 10 million people lost electricity. Rolling blackouts stretched for days. Families struggled to stay warm. Unfortunately, hundreds of lives were lost.
Usually every winter we get one or two big cold snaps, but to that degree, it's pretty unusual.
Tyler and Longview both set all-time low temperature records, and record snow amounts also fell. Brad Bryant is the meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service office in Shreveport. He calls the February 2021 winter storm possibly a once-in-a-lifetime event.
If you look back over the 142 years of climate history from the Tyler station, I would imagine you would only find one or two prolonged events like that were that cold and had that much snow.
The storm left a lasting mark on Texas. In its wake, lawmakers and agencies acted. The power grid was improved. Power plants and gas lines were winterized. For instance, Oncor built new substations, upgraded wires, and added smart switches aimed at improving reliability and reducing outage times.
Here, specifically in East Texas, we've added a couple of substations that would increase load for the East Texas areas.
Experts say preparation is key. Every winter, the Texas Department of Transportation continues an effort to treat roads before any storm.
I know we are constantly, though, looking for innovation and new ways to do things, but for this year, we'll still continue to use that brine solution. It's something that we can prepare on site.
Still, everyone remembers the roads caked in ice and snow for days. The brine solution and rock salt, no match for the snow and cold. Despite that storm, TxDOT maintains storms like 2021 are too rare to keep a snowplow in East Texas.
We do have what I would call a plow. I'm sure it's called something else that we can put on the front of trucks that can help push things out of the way if needed, help get ice off the road.
And more changes coming from the National Weather Service, a new way of messaging the dangers of extreme cold.
Instead of the hard freeze warnings, if that same event were to happen again, you would see a lot of extreme cold warnings mixed with cold weather advisories.
Back at the Millers' home are more reminders of the winter storm. Ryan now works for a firm helping power companies make their power lines and poles more resilient.
So that's something that's going on not just in Texas, but across the nation as well. So it was kind of a wake-up call for a lot of people to, even if their systems were good, make them better.
And it may sound odd, but the first few days home with baby Eloin were somewhat reminiscent of the feeling during the winter storm.
Right after we had the baby and we had our first couple nights at home, and it was in those first 2 weeks of survival mode with a newborn and trying to figure out like when to wake up, what to do, what routine to get. It felt reminiscent of the snowstorm a little bit.
A storm the Millers and the state of Texas will never forget. I'm CBS 19 Chief Meteorologist Brett Anthony. Could we see another winter storm like the one in 2021? We'll have your extended forecast coming up later on in this half hour. But first, we want to talk about fact versus fiction. There are a lot of myths when it comes to winter weather. Jamie Hassard breaks it down.
Ever wondered why winter feels so magical? Those frosty mornings, cozy nights by the fire, and of course the snowflakes that drift down like little pieces of art. But how much of what we think we know about winter is actually true? Let's test some of those winter facts versus myths and see where science sets the record straight. First up, no two snowflakes are alike. It's mostly true, but nature's conditions are almost never identical. So most snowflakes are unique, but scientists in controlled labs have actually created identical snowflakes by matching the same temperature and humidity. So nature rarely repeats itself, but it can copy and paste once and a while. Next up, you lose most of your body heat through your head. That's a myth. That's a myth that's been around forever, right? Well, science says that heat escapes from anywhere that's uncovered. Your head, your hands, your feet, it's all fair game. If you're losing heat through your head, it's probably because it's the only thing not wrapped in a scarf. Now, here's one that gets blamed every year. Cold weather gives you a cold. Nope. That is a myth because viruses cause colds, but not cold air. But winter does help them spread. We stay indoors, share the same air, and the dry air actually helps viruses live longer. So staying warm won't prevent a cold, but washing your hands just might. So that is a myth. How about this one? It snows more during a full moon. That's a myth. The moon's phases have no effect on snowfall. A full moon just makes the snow look a little bit more magical. And here are a few chilly truths to know this winter. So every snowflake begins as a tiny speck of dust or pollen, a microscopic starting point for all the winter beauty. And then the coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth, negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit in Antarctica. That's cold enough to freeze metal instantly. Snow isn't always white. Deep snow can look blue, and in the Arctic, pink snow sometimes appears thanks to this little tiny algae. So whether it's fact or fiction, winter is full of wonder, and a little science makes it even more magical. So stay cozy, stay curious, and maybe keep that hat handy just in case.
When CBS 19 Extreme East Texas Cold Truth continues, we'll take a look at the exclusive CBS 19 winter weather forecast. But up next after the break, meteorologist Joel Robinson gets your house ready for winter. Welcome back to Extreme East Texas Cold Truth. Welcome back to Extreme East Texas Cold Truth. There is one truth about the cold air here in East Texas. When it comes, it can sometimes threaten our homes in terms of freezing our pipes and making them burst, costing us hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. But we've got some tips for you tonight on how to prevent that from happening. Here's meteorologist Joel Robinson.
Colder temperatures are approaching, which means pipes can be at risk of bursting from the freezing temperatures. I spoke to local plumber Trenton Perro of the Original Evans Air Conditioning and Plumbing to see what you can do to prepare your home.
They should see if they have any exposed piping and make sure to cover any outdoor faucets. It can freeze and then it expands the pipe and breaks it, so that when it thaws out, you have a major leak somewhere.
Pipe repairs can be expensive. According to Perro, older homes with copper or galvanized pipes are especially at risk. Pipe insulation and faucet covers can help retain water temperature.
It's fairly inexpensive to get insulation. They make foam and rubber insulation for piping that can go over the piping, and it just helps retain that water temperature and to make it less likely to freeze.
Now, on top of insulating your pipes, Perro also suggests letting water drip out of your faucet. Moving water is far less likely to freeze. For some homeowners, an automatic in-ground sprinkler system will also need to be winterized with compressed air, as the pipes still contain water from the previous season. Another thing to check, your gutters.
So you just want to make sure you don't have large amounts of debris, leaf litter, things like that are constantly clogging up the gutters and not allowing the water to flow out properly.
If the first freeze happens to catch you off guard, don't worry. What you want to do is take an insulated cover and cover all of your outdoor faucets like so. And on the inside, don't forget to let your indoor faucets drip as well. In Tyler, I'm CBS19 meteorologist Joel Robinson.
Temperatures in the teens can wreak havoc on farm equipment, cattle, and crops. So what does the agricultural community do to get ready for a deep freeze? Here's weather expert Jamie Hassard.
When temps drop here in East Texas, most of us just turn on the heat. But for these farmers, it means longer hours, harder work, and more of an expense. So I'm bringing you along with me here at Whitworth Cattle Farm to learn how these farmers are preparing for the frost and protecting their livelihood.
For farmers like Benny Whitworth, the to-do list starts weeks before the first hard freeze. From topping off coolant to checking batteries, every tractor has to be ready when feeding time comes.
When feeding time comes, we've got to have those crank. We check batteries, do all that, make sure that maintenance is up to where our tractors can perform in those cold mornings, because if your tractor doesn't start, the cows can't get fed.
Water is one of the biggest challenges. Frozen pipes and icy troughs mean long mornings with torches and hammers. The ranch runs on a well, and that means extra prep to keep things flowing. Whitworth explains a few tips and tricks he uses.
We try to make sure that all of our pipes are wrapped, our water tanks for the cattle and stuff like that are wrapped best we can. Of course, during really hard freezes, we're still busting water troughs and stuff like that to keep our cattle watered. We've got some de-icers that we'll put on, like our windshields and stuff like that, and we have some bucket heaters and things that we can put into some water troughs to ensure that those keep operating well. And then we'll use, an old-time hack of just leaving water cracked open, and water running typically doesn't freeze.
It's not just livestock that feels the impact. Even winter crops and farmers can take a hit when temperatures drop into those teens.
Yeah, so pretty much all of our crops are vulnerable to the frost. Even our winter legume crops, really deep freeze, hard freeze will burn those back a little bit. I'm a cattle rancher, I'm not a plumber. I hate plumbing work, and typically when you have a hard freeze, you're going to have busted lines and things like that, so that's definitely a hardship.
Preparing for a freeze is also about keeping the herd healthy. As temperatures drop, ranchers double down on feed, vaccines, and care to make sure that their cattle are ready for the long winter ahead.
We'll do all of our vaccinations, deworming programs, and all that to ensure our cattle are healthy going into the winter. And then trying to get those cattle in the best shape we can before we turn them out.
After months of cold mornings, the first warm day of spring is more than just a change in weather. For ranchers, it's a reminder of why the hard work was worth it.
Out here, a hard freeze isn't just uncomfortable, it's a full-time job for these farmers. From draining water lines to keeping cattle fed, these farmers are ready to put in the work before the cold freeze happens. Reporting with CBS 19, I'm Jamie Hassard.
There is more to come when Extreme East Texas Cold Truth continues. Joe Robinson breaks down the types of precipitation we see here in East Texas, and I've got a look at your exclusive CBS 19 winter weather forecast. There's no doubt that we see all kinds of precipitation here in East Texas, from hail There's no doubt that we see all kinds of precipitation here in East Texas, from hail to snow to sleet. But how can you tell the difference? Here's meteorologist Joe Robinson.
In the wintertime, there can be many different types of precipitation, whether that be rain, freezing rain, ice pellets, otherwise known as sleet, or even your classic snowfall. But what are the differences between them all, and how do they form? Let's go over that right now. So basically, what you're looking at here is a side view of a warm front. So you have warm air over here to the left, and then over to the right you got some colder air. We'll call this 32 degrees or colder, freezing air to the right. This is a very common setup in the winter time, so you definitely get a lot of different precipitation types when it comes to this. So we're going to start off with good old-fashioned rain, the entire column of air above freezing, basically allowing rain to form, and then you have a shallow area of freezing air just ahead of the rain that can cause freezing rain. So meanwhile, the rain falls as it is above freezing, just above the surface, and then just near the surface you have freezing air, which allows ice to form on top of sidewalks, roads, or even power lines. That can cause some mass power outages, which is not a good thing. But when it comes to sleet, it's very similar to hail, but there is a little bit of a difference here. It's basically rain that falls and then freezes on its way down and forms these tiny little ice pellets. Now, in contrast to hail, hail forms from the strong updraft of a thunderstorm through the freezing level way up high. So a little bit different than hail. And then when it comes to snow, the entire column of air is 32 degrees or colder, so that allows for plenty of snowfall.
Well, thanks for hanging with us for this half hour. It's time to take a look at that exclusive CBS 19 winter weather forecast. Of course, most forecasts that are going to be done this winter are going to use something called La Nina, because La Nina is the cooling of the Pacific Ocean waters off of South America. And you can see just how cool the waters are this year. We are in something called a La Nina advisory, and when that happens, typically the jet stream is pushed up to the north, cooler air flows over the northern part of the United States. The Great Lakes are wet and cool, so a lot of snowfall there. And here in East Texas, if La Nina is the forecast that you're going to pay attention to, dry and warm conditions would be something that you would expect. But here in the CBS 19 Weather Center, we use something called the long-range cycling weather pattern theory. Let's talk more about that. What is the LRC? Well, the LRC is a weather pattern that sets up every October to the early parts of December, and then that pattern begins to cycle. And this year's pattern is setting up right now. But a couple of signature storms have already shown up, and so we expect, after seeing some of these signature patterns, that we could see stretches of warm, dry weather, but short bursts of frigid air. I mean, we're talking about some very frigid air across parts of East Texas. And we have to find and identify these signature storms. So we look back to October 18th. We had this big upper low move through the middle part of the country. We had a little bit of rain, but we had some sharply cooler air come in behind that. When this part of the pattern repeats, expect some colder air to return, and we expect that colder air to come back in mid-December and right before Valentine's Day, and it could be much more impactful than it was in October, meaning we could have heavier rain, severe weather, snow, maybe a lot colder air. And another storm system that did bring us heavy rain was October 25th, 2025. We had these strong jet stream winds lifting the air. We had heavy rain with that storm. We know that storm will return, and when it comes back, it will bring us some significant rain, perhaps thunderstorms right around or right before Christmas. Flash flooding was a concern last time. It may be again right around Christmas with some gusty winds. If we can draw enough cold air into the system, then we could be talking about the potential for some wintry weather. And upper level winds are another part of the story. And you'll remember November 9th, it got very cold here. In fact, we had our first freeze of the season as the jet stream dipped all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Well, guess what? That feature will return. So we expect a cold blast to return, and it could come back somewhere in early to mid-January with gusty winds, falling temperatures, and maybe a rain or a rain-snow mix. Are you ready? All right, here is the CBS 19 winter weather forecast. We expect overall to have above average temperatures and below average precipitation, but it's going to turn very cold at times. Of course, the pattern is still evolving, so make sure you stay tuned for updates, and you can get those updates any time of the day on CBS19.tv or streaming on CBS 19 Plus.
almost out of time, but we are not done yet. If you missed any part of today's special or want to watch it again, you can do so on CBS19 Plus, our streaming channel, where we are live, local, and always on.
And don't forget, you can always download the CBS 19 Plus app for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.
We hope these stories and this special help to keep you prepared not only through the holidays, but throughout the entire winter. For meteorologists Joel Robinson and Jamie Hassert, I'm CBS 19 Chief Meteorologist Brett Anthony. Have a great night.